I was asked to talk about high jump. So I think the important thing is I will certainly do that. And I think it's important that I kind of give you a bit of an insight into high jump. What do I know about it? I don't know. Well, I've been practicing the bloody thing for sort of 35 years. So I'll let you decide. It is something I've lectured on at sort of national and international level, but don't hold me to ransom on that statement. I've been very lucky to work with some incredible athletes. So kind of what I wanted to share is a bit of an insight into the event. And then hopefully it'll make sense, because what I would like to share is, an incredible 4 years of what I think are the most humbling opportunity when a para athlete chooses to kind of come to you and offer you the opportunity to work with them. And it was an amazing opportunity, and one that I kind of just couldn't resist at this point in my career. So I kind of wanted to share you some of the impact that it's had on me as a coach and the coaching philosophy, and I'll let you take out of this, hopefully, some insight into, maybe how that can help you. All right. So the first part of this, as I say, is for me to kind of talk about the high jump. I'm conscious of the time, so I will, and I'm going to kind of go through this and get to the kind of the sharing with the story, working with, of course, I'm talking about Jonathan Broome Edwards here. But I think if you have got something, please just bring it up, and I'll hopefully explain it along the way. And can I just say as well, it's really good to see Bethan Partridge logged on. We can't see her there, but of course Bethan is now taken over the reins, as it were, and is coach to Jonathan Broome Edwards as from this year, with a little bit of help from her friends. That's me, that is. Okay, so what's the high jump about? I think we're going to talk a little bit about. There's an approach run. So we know that, and I'll talk about the kind of size and the things that you consider there. It's got a curve in it, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And I don't want to teach anybody to suck eggs, but please come in. But of course, we have a curve in it for mostly the reason is that, we now do a Fosbury flop and we go over backwards. And at some point, we've obviously got to rotate. And I'll give you a clue. It's really good to rotate after you've left the floor. Not so good on some of the joints if we try and rotate on the floor with incredible forces going through it. So it's about physics, really. And that's why we have a curve. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. There are preparatory strides, whether we like it or not. So it's to do with how we're built and our neuromuscular skeletal system and sensory receptor organs. And I don't want to get too technical, but pretty much our body prepares itself to jump. We don't need to teach it. There's a shortening and lengthening of muscles to get the elasticity effect out of it and put joints in position. It's definitely not something we coach, but I would say be careful on this one, because this is our enemy as well. And I will talk about that when I talk about the takeoff phase or the plant phase, because the actual body's preparation to jump can absolutely be your enemy. And Denis, I'd be interested in your points on this afterwards in terms of the horizontal jumps. With my humble beginnings, of course, I wasn't too bad. Not as good as you, sir. And then, of course, there's the penultimate contact. I want to talk about that because it's really, really significant and something we should all watch when we're coaching high jumpers. I'm going to talk a little bit about the plant and the takeoff, because I'm going to subdivide this into 3 sections. Believe it or not, that 1300 to 22 100th of a second, yes, there are 3 elements to that, all within that short space of time. And it should, you need to understand it to effectively prepare a training program to get somebody to be really efficient at takeoff. And then, of course, there's a flight phase. There's that kind of incredible gymnastic ability to maneuver your body backwards and upside down and at great speed, and of course over this bar and leave the bloody thing on, which is kind of really important. And then, of course, there's a landing. We shouldn't forget that, and I will talk about really some of the key factors. So let's go through this bit. Please come in if you've got a question on it. I think I'm happy with that, Paul, and I'll manage it myself from this end. But if you've got a question, just pop it in, quick one. So again, this is fairly simple, and I make no apologies for that, because I'll be honest, I'm a kind of simple coach, and this is simple. It really is that simple. That's how I learn. That's how I think, and I think we can complicate this. So the approach running the high jump generally is what we call a J shape. Okay, that means it's got a straight line, and then it's got a curve at the end of it. And I'll explain why we do the curve. Is to allow so that when we take off, we've got a forward motion, which takes us towards the bar, and then we've got a lateral motion because of the lean. And then, of course, we've got vertical rotation. Complex, right? So generally, if we talk about the world here, and I'm pretty safe here, certainly let's not get world class with able-bodied, but if we talk about the world of jumpers from school kids to top international jumpers, if you stand on the upright in the middle of it, so it doesn't matter if it's square, round, triangular, if you put your heel in the middle of it, there'll always be a middle, and then you do 9 to 14 pigeon steps. Yeah, the old school stuff, that's my age, right? So never mind a tape, 9 to 14 pigeon steps away from the bar. You're going to create a channel. Pretty much the world will fit in that channel. Okay, so that's a really simple thing for you there. 9 to 14 steps out. People with big legs, the Bethan Partridge of this world is really tall, got great stride leg, great cadence. You know, we're talking outside edge of that. And of course, in terms of the length, well, we're kind of governed by the arena, much as the long jump to a degree. But again, the world pretty much fits in 7 to 10 strides. You know, you might talk about a rolling 5 with Barshim. While he is beautiful to watch, I wouldn't necessarily use that as a technical model as the approach, but do you know what? Hey, who cares? He's pretty good at it. So, you know, that will change. But pretty much if you look and study this, it'll be 7 to 10 strides. What you will find here is commonality. The commonality, the consistency to high jumping is if you look at and study the top 6 males and top 6 females at every major champs over the last, you know, 15, 20 years, one thing that you'll find is absolutely consistent, and they are all different. So when somebody asks me about the technical model, I do ask, my first question is which one? But I'll make more sense, hopefully, to that. They will be different in width, different in length, but I'm giving you the standard stuff. So the standard stuff is regardless of width and length, they will be between 7 and 10 strides, and the channel for the distance away from the upright will be around 9 to so when on the 9s, I'm talking about the Jess Ennises of this world, by the way, the real stiff bouncy ball people that can just cope with a curve. So I'm talking proper inside edge school kids, top end Jess Ennis, so tight, so powerful, rubber ball, 9. Realistically, you're talking 10 to 14. And of course, you'll get 15s, Robbie Gravart, 16, and you will get slightly smaller. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And Denis asked me, this bloke was on the right earlier, and I've no idea. Does anybody know who he is? Okay, I'm only kidding. Of course, this is our own great Steve Smith, who you may not know, of course, still holds the world junior record of 2:30, which is incredible, 2:38, and it stood the test of time. I'm pretty sure I won't be on the planet when it still stands. It's one of the great world records for me of all time. This is phenomenal. There's only been 2 Olympic Games in history, one higher than that jump. That says a little bit. He did it as a junior. Of course, he went on to be a medal at every Games. So we talk about a smooth rhythm, and people talk about the bounce. I'm not necessarily going to promote a bounce ever, but I am going to promote a rhythm. So how would I describe the rhythm? I would describe it as progressive and gradual and smooth. So it's not jolty, it just moves from one to the other. That's what I mean by smooth. The range is about quality running. Moving forward, fast feet is not about touching the ground fast up and down. It's about moving forward. So we need good range to get effective hits, you know, strike on the floor to do that. Postural control. You hear high jump coaches talk about postural control. What are they talking about? They're talking about the ability to be in control of your alignment as a posture. Why do we need to be in control? Because there are so many forces, because we run around a curve. And who does that, by the way, apart from us crazy folk? And it's really difficult. So you've got multiple forces on the posture and the central core and the control. So you're going to be acting, and your body's going to want to tilt over its center of mass. So postural control is the ability to keep this straight, okay, and become upright when we're running, even with the forces pushing backwards. And then, of course, when we go around a curve, it's the ability to actually still keep it nice and tall. It doesn't happen by accident, so we have to factor this kind of preparation into our physical prep. All right, so postural control, excuse me, my throat. The other thing, of course, is the lean. You hear people say, lean away. Okay, we don't lean anywhere. What we do is really important that we understand that the lean comes from active foot strikes. if anybody in the room's old enough, and I don't want to insult anybody, so I'll just stick to me, but I think you'll decide for yourself. Back in the day when it was allowed, crikey, I'm sure you get the insurance now, but there was a wall of death, of course, at the fun fair. And it looked at centrifugal force. And for those of you, clearly there's plenty of us that aren't old enough, look at it on the old YouTube or whatever we do these days. There's a motorbike that pretty much went around, a cylindrical wooden building that you all went in and watched, and the motorbike was absolutely horizontal and the driver could let go and stuff like that. It's basically, but you could only do that with speed. Running a curve effectively requires a real commitment of active foot strikes. And one of the biggest, I'm just going to chuck out some real freebies to look at. All right. The majority of people, youngsters, when you're developing them, will go into takeoff and have either a constant or negative acceleration, deceleration as we call it, but a negative acceleration. And they do that because of the impact of forces going to the outside edge of the curve. Okay. The lean will be effective when we come upright. That will massively affect your ability to jump high. Your ability to jump high and go vertical, it's all about angles. Dennis will tell you that. We go from triple jump to long jump to high jump, and then how on earth do we get up at 6 meters? Well, we have to reduce the angle with a pole. It really is that uncomplicated, people. Study it, but okay, so we need an angle. The angle happens because we run around a curve, and if we're active at the feet, it drives straight up through, and it's easy to keep a posture. We shouldn't be creating lean from the upper body. Bethan Partridge is probably going to shout out, Ruth Beata. Okay, so she's won medals at every major champs, but maybe there's always an outlier. Okay, so maybe not look at Ruth Beata, but anybody else. And we need to accelerate. This is really important, people, in high jump. Why? It's important in long jump, right? It's important in triples, in all the jumps. Okay, I'm going to teach you really simply as I do it. If you were to hold a ball now, kind of bouncy ball, just pretend you're doing it, and you're going to hold it by your side and you're going to drop it and it's going to bounce so high. Yeah? If you wanted it to bounce even higher, what would you do with it? Well, you'd push it a little bit harder, wouldn't you? Of course you would. You would impart speed on it. And the reason being is when it hits the floor, that there's nowhere for it to go. The floor's not going to give. Certainly at Loughborough, it's pretty solid. All right. So the only way to take the path of least resistance, there'll be energy created under the foot. It will compress. It would go straight back up through the board. Assuming there will be a point when it's too strong, when it will have a negative effect, and that's because the ball can't hold its shape. Oh, we're talking about a person, Graham. Yes, we are. It's exactly the same with an athlete. The speed will be reliant on two things: its ability and, of course, physicality. So we can't run before we can walk. All right. So we have an optimum speed all the time, and I'm confident Dennis will talk about this in the horizontal jumps too. And that is an optimum speed. What do we define that? It's not a maximum speed, because we wouldn't achieve the highest jump at a maximum speed. We probably wouldn't get off the ground. It'd be very dangerous. The optimum speed is personal. It's very personal to the actual athlete. We can talk about range, by the way, and I'm going to give you some ranges that we should look at in terms of top performers and what we should look at. But in terms of the ability to actually take off, always look at the optimum speed. In definition, it means the fastest speed that will get you over the highest height. That's what optimum speed means to me. Okay, then there's a takeoff phase, of course. So what's that about? What should we be looking for? I think, fundamentally, we need an upper body as vertical as possible. Now, this picture, I kind of dug this out of an old set. I'm not going to lie. If I went back one slight phrase here, I got pictures of this. And if you look at the plant phase, that's where the foot is flat on the floor, pointing towards the bed, not towards me, towards the bed, by the way. Then basically vertical is where your inside shoulder, in this case, this gentleman's left shoulder, right, is inside the toe of the right foot. Yeah, I mean, he's just passing, he's just leaving the floor. But listen, that's clearly vertical. Look at how parallel he is to the upright. So that's what you're talking about. If you look at most youngsters and you experienced it, you were working with, they'll look like a lovely banana. And we're going to talk about why. Okay, before they've left the floor, they've broke over their back, their upper body's completely contorted over the takeoff foot. Physical development and the way you run in. Okay, so we need to be running in. So we look at that. Vigorously upwards. What does vigorously mean? Listen, we need to swing the free knee. We do it in all the jumps, and there's a reason we do it. I mean, you won't want to pick a leg up on its own. It's pretty heavy, by the way. So if you did do that, if you swing it at the right time, we know that it gives us tremendous amount of sort of lift as well. Straight leg, bent leg, what's the question? It's simple, really. It's a bent leg because it's quicker. When people are doing short approach jumps, they'll cheat a little bit and they'll string a straight leg. Why? Of course they will, because a straight leg is unquestionably a really strong strength movement, but it's not a quick movement. And I'll reiterate again, top jumpers in the world, men and women, 13 to 22 100ths of a second. Bang, you're on and off the floor. You're not going to do that with a straight leg. Martial arts people, do they kick with a straight leg? No, they lift it up bent and then flick it out because it's quicker. So they're pretty good too. So bent leg, everything upwards, arms, head. The body rotates through its longitudinal axis, all right? And it does it critically here, through the flight, not before takeoff. I think is a real key thing that you need to look. If somebody's rotating prior to takeoff, and it's all to do with the foot position, let me clear that up. Where should the foot point? It's really mixed here. If 35 years has told me anything, I will give you it very clearly with all the books, right? Forget it. Get the middle of a high jump bed and get the far upright. And as long as the foot is in line with the shin, okay, and in line with the upper leg, all right, with the hips at square to that, then that toe needs to be pointing somewhere between not before the center of the bed. So after the center of bed and inside the far upright. That's the teaching point. Somebody's going to go, Graham, none of the men do that at the Olympics. I'll let you worry about that, and you can decide for yourself when they're there, because that's about adaptation. But the correct teaching point, all right, you should be to the second half of the bed and ideally inside the far upright. Okay, come back to me on that after if you want to. And of course, your back should then be at the bar prior to takeoff. So he's going to continue to rotate through that flight phase. And of course, they lead you into this absolutely stunning position here. This really is a good model, right, for a flight phase take across the bar. That's what we should have. The knees should be plus shoulder width apart. I've got a really simple exercise for this, people. We don't do it now, kids. Lay yourself on the floor, on your back, press your feet against the floor 90 degrees and lift your bum off the floor as high as you can. Right? Then spread your legs at the knees. Don't move anything else. See what happens to your hips. It's a great exercise. Do it with all the kids. They'll be like, oh my gosh, there's 2 more inches. We could do with them. Use it. Okay, so knees, shoulder width and more apart. This is a brilliant picture. The other thing, of course, is extend through the hips. Okay, this bit, extend through the hips, not through the back. That's really important. That's the highest part that we need to get over. And what we should look at this really is a perfect image for a change. That the trunk, of course, should be at 90 degrees to the bar. So you can see that through here and down 90 degrees to the bar. And of course, hips and shoulders should be parallel to the bar. I don't see that very often. No, but that's the challenge, right? They're the things that you should be working on all the time. This is the image. If you get a high jumper doing that, yeah, you've done well. I'll be the first to applaud you. It's really tough. And of course, the high point over the bar's center. Right, why do we talk about this? I've been really privileged to actually have a couple of athletes of mine jump British records, which was a nice moment. And they've also qualified for major championships, Olympics and Worlds. I've never seen anybody do that without the bar being measured and then measure it at the center. There's a reason. Doesn't matter how stiff the bar is over any expansion. I'm certainly not a scientist. It will deflect in the middle. Okay, so why would you waste centimeters and not clear the bar at the lowest point? Because you've jumped enough at the lowest point. How do we do that? And here's the commonality of this point of takeoff. Right. If you stand, I don't want to do measures. I want you to imagine now you're going to stand at 90 degrees to the bar with your hand out sideways, with your fingertips on the upright. Is everybody happy with that? You're standing parallel to the bar, side on, fingertips on the upright. I want you to keep hold of the bar and I want you to arch forward so that you're at 45 degrees. All right, you're splitting the 90 degrees. Stand on the outside foot, and that is a beautiful starting position. then it becomes personal. But I'll tell you now, the whole world will fit within 1 foot either way of that, left, right, and inside and out. So forget the outside at the back. People will have 5, 6, 7 meters difference. They will have 2 or 3 meters difference in width. The end position will fit within a 0.5 square for the whole world. All right. So there's a little trick for you. Forget all the measuring. If whatever age it fits, whatever age, arm on the bar, 90 degrees, take yourself to 45 degrees, put a marker by the outside foot. That's your takeoff position to start with.